You got a girlfriend?
I'm married. I have a wife. Her name's Teresa. She cuts hair.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Think about Teresa. Name of the game, move the money from your client's pocket into your pocket.
About half of the world's population makes an income from some form of employment, which means there are roughly 3.5 billion people waiting to give you their money. Even though the current situation we're in has undoubtedly dealt the stat a huge blow, e-commerce continues to thrive. Trillions of dollars have been spent online this year alone on retail goods. Experts project that figure to hit $4.2 trillion by year's end. And that's not even considering all the junk food you buy. You see, transactions are the basis of modern economics, but to make them work, you need both a seller and a buyer. Ultimately, the latter outnumbers the former. So it's pretty fair to say that consumers and customers are what make the world go round. But the real question is, how do you convince people to happily buy your products more than once and actually endorse them? Let's find out. A lot of businesses around the world value their customers more than anything else, just as much as others think that their suppliers are more important. But truth is, business is all about balance. It's no different with suppliers and customers. Finding and keeping the right suppliers is an art on its own. Doing the same with customers though now, that is a completely different ballgame. But before you can sell anything, you need to understand why your buyers do what they do and how to leverage their needs and wants in your favor.
Brad, show him how it's done. Boom. Sell me that pen. Watch. Go on.
Let me sell this pen.
That's my boy right there.
This pen.
I'll sell anything.
Would you do me a favor? Write your name down on that napkin for me.
I don't have a pen.
Exactly. Supply and demand, my friend.
Understanding the people that buy your stuff is a convergence of several fields of scientific and psychological studies. It's insanely difficult to understand why people do what they do and to predict how they would react to certain triggers. Most of the time, marketers and researchers use the data they get from specifically selected groups of people to make guesstimations about how the general public might react to their trickery. To make a comparison, it's easier for us to understand and to predict what unfolds in our known universe than it is to predict why a human does, well, anything. And because of that, businesses spend bucket loads of money on researching their ideal customers. Let's take Facebook and Google, for example. Those two companies alone spent over $39 billion in 2019 on research and development. That's a nice portion of a big budget spent on deepening their understanding of their products and their customers. In other words, Facebook spent more than some countries are worth just to understand what makes us want to look at other people's statuses. That's crazy, right? But even if you don't have that kind of budget to understand what makes your customers tick, knowing the basics will take you a pretty long way. Consumer behavior is the study of people, groups of people, and organizations all involved in transactions and how their emotional, psychological, and physical circumstances affect their purchasing decisions. Let's think of it this way. Your favorite brand of veggies needs to understand what makes you want to buy vegetables in the first place. That is, what behaviors and emotions they need to trigger or to change within you to get you to buy those greens. In other words, a whole lot of science is needed. By investigating certain factors and variables like demographics, personality types, and lifestyles, marketers and business owners hope to understand what drives consumers' wants and consumption tendencies so that they can get their customers to buy more of their products. One of the pillars in the study of consumer behavior is behavioral economics, which is a modern-day outlook on traditional economics that investigates factors like time, information, and cognitive functions to figure out why people do what they do. Basically, it's all about stalking people until you know what triggers to use on them.
I've done all my research, I conducted an informal poll, and I've arrived at the rock-solid certainty I've made the right choice.
Well, that's got to be a good feeling.
Oh, it is. Although...
Oh, crap.
Think about the last decision you made. Whether it was eating a chocolate instead of a fruit, or watching a movie on Netflix rather than socializing with your friends. Now, odds are that very decision was made based on illogical and irrational reasoning by the bare definition of what is and isn't logical and rational. You still with me? Fantastic. Let's play the Ultimatum game. Both players are approached by a stranger who has $100 in $10 bills. The stranger is willing to give player 1 all of the money, but only on the condition that he shares it with player 2, no matter how large or little the offer is. Now, if player 2 accepts the offer, they both get the money, but if she rejects it, then neither of them get the money. If player 2 is a truly rational human being, she would accept any offer that player 1 makes to her, since she would have more money than she started with. But we all know that this is hardly the case. Player 2 would most likely only accept an offer that's considered to be fair, something like 50-50, 60-40, or heck, maybe even 70-30. If the split is deemed to be unfair, player 2 won't accept the offer and would therefore act irrationally. When economic decisions are being made, our brains operate using several more factors like fairness and logic as opposed to rationality alone. There's levels to this thing. Remember earlier when we spoke about how behavioral economics investigates factors like time, information, and cognitive function? Well, all of that, it's all grounded on bounded rationality, a term coined by Herbert Simon which explains the seemingly irrational nature of human beings. While traditional economics assumes that people are completely rational in their decision making, that people have enough time, information, and cognitive ability to make a sound decision. Bounded rationality challenges that notion with the converse hypothesis. As one of the legs upon which behavioral economics stands, bounded rationality does well to add just a bit of context to most of the other principles of behavioral economics, like heuristics and cognitive biases. We'll get to those in a moment. Humans are complex creatures. We know this. And so does a psychologist named Daniel Kahneman. He came up with the dual systems theory, which looks at the two operating systems people use when going about their daily lives. The first one operates quickly and without much consideration. It uses factors like your accumulated knowledge, the recent information you may have come across, as well as instinctive impulse to quickly make decisions. The second system, on the other hand, uses much more cognitive power to solve complex problems like mathematics and entanglements. It uses up much more of your energy, which is why it takes us longer to complete tricky tasks than it does to do a simple chore. So, to prevent us from taking forever to do a seemingly simple task, our brains have mastered heuristics. These nifty impulses are mental shortcuts that help us make quicker decisions and keep up with the hustle and bustle of everyday life. Think back to the example that we used earlier on about the chocolate versus the fruit. Now, a decision like that only takes you a couple of seconds to make, but to a truly rational individual, a whole lot of other things would be considered. Things like personal health, carbon tax, the intricacies of the value and supply chains that the food items went through. You know, all of those stupid things. Without heuristics, we just wouldn't get anything done. Adding to the many weird and wonderful principles of behavioral economics are cognitive biases. When you make purchasing decisions, odds are that your decision will be made based on your preconceptions, your worldviews, and your biases towards, well, everything. Cognitive biases are subjective thoughts, ideas, and conclusions that we create within ourselves over time. They're based on a multitude of factors like our demographics, our loyalties, and our upbringings. There are quite a few biases that we're subjected to every single day without even knowing it. Let's talk about the pricing bias. Someone decided to test this bias out by inviting a few people to a wine tasting. Now, all of the wines were identical in taste, texture, and smell. The only thing that differed was the branding and the pricing. This person then divided the guests into two groups. One would taste the cheaper stuff, while the others would sip on the more expensive wine. The facilitator was intrigued to learn that the people who sipped on the expensive wine found the drink to taste much better than the cheaper stuff. That's because people generally tend to associate the price of an item with its quality. I'm willing to bet that you've never taken a second to catch yourself in the act. Don't worry though, we're all victims. Before you say anything, yes, I know, this is a lot to take in, so I'm not going to get into some of the other complicated stuff about consumer behavior. Maybe next time. But for now, there's only one thing that you need to keep in mind. Customers are king, and understanding them makes you a kingmaker. You follow? Whether it be knowing which triggers to switch on in your ad campaigns, or tapping into their need for heuristics, or heck, even using their biases to your advantage. At the end of the day, it's all about using the science to figure out how to put their money into your pocket. After all, it's just business. Hi guys, Lebo here. Thank you so much for watching this video. This is the Dojo's pilot and I really hope it does well. If you'd like to support this channel, all you have to do is smash that like button. If you thought the video was terrible, give it a thumbs down and let me know what you think I should do differently next time. See you in the next one. Cheers.